Imagine waking up tomorrow and feeling nothing when a car speeds toward you. No jolt, no gasp, no instinct to jump back. You just watch it come. That's not courage. That's not calm. That's something far darker. And for a small number of people alive right now, that is their actual reality. Scientists have studied them for decades. And what they found doesn't just explain fear. It explains why, without it, you wouldn't last a week. But before we get there, let's ask the real question. What if no human had ever developed fear? Not just one person. Every human. Every civilization. Every ancestor who ever lived. What would the world actually look like? The answer isn't what you think. And by the end of this, you'll never take your own fears seriously the same way again. Most people think of fear as a weakness. Something to overcome. Something the brave don't feel. Motivational culture has spent decades telling you to push through it, ignore it, conquer it. And that framing makes sense on the surface. Fear holds people back. Fear creates anxiety. Fear keeps people small. So a world without it sounds almost utopian. Braver humans, bolder decisions, a species finally unchained from its own nervous system. That's the assumption. Here's where it collapses. In 1994, neurologist Antonio Damasio published a study that would quietly change everything scientists thought they understood about the human mind. He had been working with a patient known in medical literature only as Elliot. Elliot had a small tumor removed from just behind his forehead. The surgery was considered a success. His intelligence was intact. His memory was perfect. His language, reasoning, and perception were completely undamaged. On paper, Elliot was fine, but Elliot could no longer make a single decision. He would sit for hours deciding which pen to use. He would spend an entire afternoon debating where to have lunch, weighing every possible option without ever landing. He lost his job, then another. His marriage collapsed. And when Damasio tested him, something strange emerged. Elliot felt almost nothing. Not fear, not anxiety, not urgency. His emotional system had been quietly severed from his rational one by the surgery, and without the signal that something mattered, nothing did. Damasio called it the somatic marker hypothesis. Emotions, including fear, aren't obstacles to good decisions. They are the mechanism that makes decisions possible at all. Fear is the thing that tells your brain this one matters. Without it, every option weighs exactly the same, and a brain where everything weighs the same cannot choose. Now scale that to an entire species. A humanity without fear would not be a humanity of heroes. It would be a humanity of Elliots. Billions of minds capable of seeing every option clearly and completely, unable to act on any of them. The evolutionary record makes this even harder to ignore. Fear is not a modern invention. It is not a cultural construct. It is ancient in a way that is almost impossible to overstate. The amygdala, the almond-shaped cluster of neurons deep in your brain that processes fear, exists in nearly every vertebrate that has ever lived. Fish have it, reptiles have it, birds have it. It is over 500 million years old. Evolution does not keep things for 500 million years unless they are absolutely critical to survival. Your fear response is older than your ability to speak, older than your ability to think abstractly, older than every language, religion, and civilization that has ever existed on this planet. It was here first, and it is the reason you are here at all. Here's what that means in practice. Your ancestors survived because they were afraid. The ones who weren't didn't make it. Every single human who ever lived long enough to reproduce passed down a brain wired to detect threat, to prioritize it above everything else, and to act on it faster than conscious thought. You are the biological product of an unbroken line of survivors stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Every single one of them was afraid, and that fear kept them alive long enough to become you. Without it, that chain breaks on the first link. But here's where it gets genuinely strange. There is a woman alive today who cannot feel fear. Scientists call her SM. She has a condition called Urbach-Wiethe disease, a rare genetic disorder that calcified her amygdala completely, destroyed it, and researchers at the University of Iowa have studied her for decades. SM is warm, friendly, and completely fearless. She's been held at knife point and felt nothing. She walked into a haunted house and tried to touch the actors out of curiosity. She picks up venomous snakes. She once approached a man at a park who threatened her life and felt only mild interest. She has been robbed, assaulted, threatened repeatedly, and she keeps putting herself in danger, not because she is reckless, but because the system that is supposed to tell her she is in danger is simply gone. The researchers who work with SM describe a paradox that is difficult to articulate. She is in many ways remarkable, resilient, unbothered by things that would devastate most people, but she is also, in their words, not fully protected. The fear she cannot feel is the fear that was supposed to keep her safe, and without it, the world does not become easier to navigate. It becomes invisible in all the ways that matter most. Now multiply that across every human who has ever lived. No fear means no flight response. No flight response means early humans don't run from predators. They walk toward them the way SM walks toward snakes. Curious, unbothered, and dead within minutes. The species doesn't survive its first 1,000 years. There are no campfires because there is no instinct to to stay close to safety. There are no shelters because there is no felt need for protection. There are no tribes because the social bonding that fear of isolation creates never forms. And this is the part almost nobody talks about. Fear doesn't just protect individuals, it builds civilizations. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner's research into hunter-gatherer societies showed that nighttime storytelling around fires was where human culture was born. And what were those stories about? Threats, dangers, warnings passed from one generation to the next about what could kill you, where predators gathered, which berries destroyed you from the inside. The entire architecture of human knowledge transfer began as a fear response. Without fear, those stories have no urgency. Without urgency, they don't get told. Without them being told, the next generation learns nothing. The cultural memory of the species evaporates in a single generation. Language itself may have developed partly as a fear mechanism. The ability to communicate threat across distance, to warn someone who cannot see what you see, is one of the most powerful survival tools ever developed. Take fear out of the equation, and the pressure to develop that tool disappears. So here's what the world actually looks like without fear. Empty, quiet, briefly inhabited by a species that walked calmly into every danger it encountered, felt nothing when it should have run, made no decisions that mattered, built nothing that lasted, and left no record that it was ever here. Not because humans were destroyed by something external, but because the one internal signal that made survival worth fighting for was simply never switched on. Fear is not your weakness. It is the oldest part of you, the part that was refined across 500 million years of things trying to kill everything that ever lived. Every time your heart rate spikes, every time your stomach drops, every time something in you says, not this, not now, run, that is not your body failing you. That is 500 million years of survival intelligence firing exactly the way it was designed to. SM can pick up a snake without flinching. She can walk into any room, face any threat, and feel nothing. And the scientists who have spent decades studying her don't envy her. They worry about her because she is living proof of what a life without fear actually looks like. Not freedom, not courage, just a person the world keeps trying to destroy and a brain that never gets the message. You are afraid sometimes. That means you are working exactly as intended.